Namaskar and a very good evening to all. This is Arpita Srivastava welcoming you all to this online incubation women entrepreneurs and girl student program under the aegis of Root to Bloom and Atmanirbhar Bharat learning platform with an intention to enrich and help entrepreneurs to set benchmarks in their respective field. Well, my dear viewers, as you all know, that starting a business entails understanding and dealing with many issues, whether it is legal, financing, sales and marketing, intellectual property protection, liability protection, human resources, and many more. But interest in entrepreneurship is at an all-time high. And many budding entrepreneurs start their companies without a startup business plan. Actually, to be honest, they don't know how to write up one or think it's too much work. But the truth is, having an action plan always helps. And there has been a spectacular success stories of early stage startup growing to be multi-billion dollars to name few, maybe Uber, WhatsApp, or Airbnb. So we have a lot more to talk about. And today in our session, we are presenting one of the most important key steps for entrepreneurs who are going to start their business. And what is that important topic is how to create a startup action plan. And to address this issue, we are really glad and privileged to have with us Mr. Dipan Sahu, Assistant Innovative Director, Ministry of Education, Innovation Cell, and AICTE Government of India, to enlighten us on the topic of startup action plan as our guest speaker. So before I call upon Mr. Sahu for his addressing, I would like to give our viewers and learners a brief introduction about his profile. Allow me to read your profile, sir. Well, as I said, Mr. Bipin Sahu is currently serving as Assistant Innovative Director at the Innovation Cell of Ministry of Education, housed All India Council for Technical Education, New Delhi. He is leading the formulation and nationwide implementation of various national policy initiatives towards institutionalization and benchmarking innovation practices in higher education institutions, such as National Innovation Startup Policy, Atal Ranking of Institutions of Innovation Achievements, and Innovation Council. Well, he's an enthusiast, policy entrepreneur, and a practitioner, actively contributing to the growth of the Indian startup ecosystem. His work engages a variety of ecosystem enablers and successful established a scalable and sustainable model of the Institution Innovative Council network to foster INE culture is more than 3,000 EAI, which directly influences the career choice of 4 million students. Well, we are glad to have you, Mr. Sahu, with us. So before taking much of his time, well, I would also like to inform our learners that he has excelled in many fields. He has an exhaustive 14 years of experience in hand, and he's also one of the one who is being facilitated with the scholarship of CAS. So not making much of time here, we welcome you, sir, on our board. Over to you.
Thank you, Arpita ji, for a very brief and very nice introduction. And thank you, Pradeep Singh ji, for organizing this kind of programs on regular basis, where or through which you are giving an excellent opportunity to the students to come and learn and also to practice innovation and entrepreneurship. Uh, what the says going on that fail fast if you want to success, right? The sooner you will practice, sooner you will start doing something, then actually that will help in doing the mistakes, and from these mistakes you will learn, and you will improve on that, and that will help you to uh, establish your startup. So this is the golden principle of uh, start your venture. The sooner you will start, there is the success rate is high in later stage to become a successful entrepreneur. So this is the first golden principle we all have to remember, and you have to try to adapt it while practicing venture. Now coming to the today's topic, that is startup action plan. So generally in Indian context, we have more than 50,000 higher educational institutions, right? And more than 4 and 4.5 crores of students are studying in these 50,000 higher educational institutions. Out of this 50,000, I think 10,000 institutions are technical in nature. Remain 40,000 institutions are non-technical in nature. So if you will take a thumb rule of uh, approximately 35 to 40 lakhs of students are part of this 10,000 technical students, technical institutions, and these students have high potential to become an entrepreneur uh, in certain stage of their life. That's why we have to give ample opportunities and also the learning environment to our youth while in their academic, so that they will understand various jargons. They will uh, also understand the importance of innovation and entrepreneurship, and they can take it as an alternative career option. This thing is completely missing in our Indian education system since last 30 to 40 years. In 2020, first time government came up with a new policy called National Education Policy, and under that NEP 2020, there is enough provision and emphasis on innovation and entrepreneurship, especially commercialization of technologies, focusing on creative tendency and design thinking capabilities of our students and our educational institutions to build conducive infrastructure, facility, and access to the resources, especially in terms of financial resources and knowledge and human capital uh, capabilities are the keys to build this kind of innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem in our educational institutions. Just imagine, just imagine out of these 50,000 institutions, only 2,000 institutions are part of this ecosystem. That means if you will visit to this 2,000 higher educational institutions, you will find certain level of innovation and entrepreneurship activities are happening. Remain 48,000 institutions, you will not find any smell or any sense of innovation in their curriculum nor in their extracurricular activities. What the startup and innovation activities you are coming across, that is actually generally done by the youths or entrepreneurs, those are already graduated from the academic institutions. So at this 2% level of uh, uh, our students in innovation and entrepreneurship, India has achieved third position in the world in terms of dynamism of the startup ecosystem. Just imagine if this 2% will increase to the 10%. That means at least 10,000 institutions will develop this kind of ecosystem in their campuses. And it will take some time of around 4 to 5 years. So once it will reach to that level, and once they will develop their competency and capabilities, and the maturity of this ecosystem will reach to a certain level, then the number of innovations, the number of startups, and the number of entrepreneurs our education institute will produce will be beyond the imagine, beyond our imagine. And definitely this will help to take India's position from third position to the first position. So who are in the second and first position? Israel and USA are two countries, and UK is sharing the same position with India, that they are the most vibrant startup ecosystem in their country. So considering all kind of demographic dividends, that India has the biggest domestic market, we have a variety, culture, diversity, and also the a long strong base of the talents that gives us a huge scope for developing this kind of system in our country. And to make it happen, government has set a bigger target of achieving $5 trillion economy by 2025. So To achieve this $5 trillion economy, the role of entrepreneur, role of startups actually is very, very important. And if we will sensitize, if we will align our education institutions, if we will motivate our students and faculty members to acquire this kind of skill set on innovation skill set and entrepreneur skill set, and if they will be provided with a national and international platforms where they will come, they will learn, they will engage, and they will practice, and there should be a system of rewarding the best innovations or the best entrepreneurs that will keep this momentum and also influence other students and faculty members to join this movement of innovation and startup culture in our country. Let me share with you all a very interesting facts and also uh, uh, informations that why we should understand the different aspects of innovation, and also we should understand why innovation and entrepreneurship should be learned, and how it is important, how it is relevant to individual context, and also very relevant to the national context. Then it will be very kind of a we can put in a very strong way that entrepreneurship and innovation will be our integral part of our academic curriculum. This academic integration part is still not properly planned in our education system, and in the last 3 years, Ministry of Education has started many initiatives, and we are trying to provide various scalable models like Institutions Innovation Council, Smart India Hackathon program. There is a program called policy programs for higher education institutions and the student and the faculty members. That is National Innovation and Startup Policy guidelines for our educational institutions. There is another program called Atal Ranking of Institutions on Innovation Achievement. So there are n number of programs already initiated by government of India. Also, there are other ministries, they have their programs. In addition to this, our state government and industry measures, they have also various programs to handhold and to guide our students, young minds, innovators, and entrepreneurs. And we have developed a very collaborative environment through which our young minds are getting chances to demonstrate their innovative minds, and also they are getting supports from this industry and the government and non-government agencies. Let me share with you all my presentation so that you will understand in a better way. Pradeep ji, just make sure my uh, slide is visible or not.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Okay, so this graph or this picture, it says that there is a well established relationship between the innovation, entrepreneurship with a country's economic development. I hope you all know that a country's economic development is measured by using the GDP, gross domestic product. GDP per capita is the indicator of economic development of a country. And it has been seen that if you will plot the graph between the innovation activities happening in a particular country and the GDP per capita of that particular country, if you will put all countries' GDP per capita and their innovation activities, then it comes a S-shape upward graph, and it indicates a very strong and positive correlations between the innovation and GDP per capita. In a layman language, we can say that the countries those are more into innovation and entrepreneurship activities, there is high chance that that country will grow much faster. On the other way, those countries are good in economic development. They have the capacity to invest on innovation and entrepreneurship, which helps in further growth of that particular country. And one of the biggest advantages in this whole scenario is our country. India is the most benefited country among all the developed and underdeveloped countries or the developing countries where it has utilized these innovation abilities. And you can see the larger size of the green marked bubble, which indicates our country has accelerated and also intensified innovation and entrepreneurship activities in last 10 years, last one decade. Also in that whole global map, you can see there are high concentration of the blue dots, especially in the Europe, North America, and also you will find this high concentration of the blue dots, which indicates the science and technology clusters in Asian countries, especially India and South Korea and China, and certain in Japan too. That means majority of the innovations, science and technology clusters are located in these areas, and also there are scattered science and technology clusters spread across the globe. Irrespective of the economy, irrespective of the type of economic or the stage of the economic development of any country, innovation entrepreneurship is necessary to survive and thrive in this globally competitive environment. Without innovation and startup, it's not feasible to thrive, to compete, and to stay ahead with other countries. Now, talk specifically for our country, in Indian context, because in India more than 60% of workforce are young, and they have they are acquiring education, skill set, and also now they understood that creativity is through which they can generate more values. So these innovative minds, they're accelerating the growth of Indian economy. If you will see, the number of startups are coming from this majority of the economies, like developed economies. United States produce 47,000 to 48,000 startups every year, whereas UK produce 4,500 to 5,000 startups. India is producing 4,200 to 4,400 startups. Israel is producing 3,900 to 4,100 startups. Because SMEs or these startups, there is high potential in terms of growth and redistributing the values. They are heavily contributing towards the employment generation of that country. Also, startups are helping in attracting foreign direct investments. Further, startups helps in creating multiplier effect in terms of reviving the traditional businesses, reviving the cultures, and also they are helping in creating new business from the resources which is remaining ideal or unutilized since long. They also help small and medium enterprises to grow because they create a connected and linked forward and backward linked services that helps the small and medium enterprises to innovate and revive in a faster rate. On overall, all these startup and innovation uh, activities and the programs of the startups are happening in a country, they are actually creating opportunities for all the stakeholders, be it as a purchaser, be it as consumer, be it as a producer, all the stakeholders, including investor and also the government and non-government agencies. All these stakeholders are getting benefit out of this startup activities happening in the economies. And ultimately, the solutions that are coming from these innovations or entrepreneurs things that helps not only development of the economic aspects, also helping the country to achieve the sustainable development goals in terms of socio and environmental developments. Now let's understand the composition of these startups and the entrepreneurs, those are part of this ecosystem. More than 75 founders or the entrepreneurs, they earn their education either as a postgraduate degree, or they have an MBA degree, or they have an engineering degree. Further, majority of these founders and entrepreneurs are in the age group from 25 to 35. You can see the potential and energy with all these founders because they are quite young and they are driving and leading the Indian startup ecosystem. But in the other aspects, if you see the composition of male and female, the gender distribution in this startup founders, it is bit disproportionately divided. Especially that 9% of the founders are female, whereas 91% of the founders are male. Actually, in the first instance, you will feel that this is unequally distributed, but this number is at par with the global value. Actually, at the global level, the female founders proportion is around 11%, whereas in our country it is 9%. But in last 2 years, 2 to 3 years, government is encouraging the female entrepreneurs and also have lots of schemes where women entrepreneurs are encouraged to start their business. So in next 3 to 4 years, you will see there will be increase in the proportion of the female founders, and our aim is to at least to take at least 25% in next 5 to 6 years. So government has set its own objective, taking all these aspects into account, and also we are expecting that the contribution of startups in that in any industry should grow multifold, and also the young innovators, young entrepreneurs should take the lead and establish a startup during the academic period itself, rather waiting for 10 years to work and then realize their dream to become an entrepreneur, then start their business. So how we are going to address all these challenging and issues through policy and various other instruments is very important to watch and also experience. Let me share with you the growth trend of Indian startup ecosystem and how India is emerging as a startup nation. So if you will see the total number of startups in 2015, it was only 490 plus startups. But in 2020, we have more than 2,950 startups. It has increased at the rate of 40 to 45% every year. And out of which, more than 21% of the Indian startups, they are primarily focusing the global market. They are catering the need of the global need. And this percentage is also increasing at the rate of 18%. So you can see that Indian startups are not restricting themselves or not only catering the domestic market need, also they are producing export quality oriented service products and the services, and addressing the global market requirement. And this trend and this focus has further enhanced and increased, especially during the post COVID-19 crisis. And you will surprised to know that because India and the internet system, the digital economy, the digital platforms and the mobile platforms, because of the huge number of this kind of infrastructures available in our country, this has accelerated the digital economy, and that helped many startups and innovations to formulate and to grow, and it spread into rural and semi-urban areas, which was not happened before. But this COVID-19 crisis actually has given has provided that opportunity. And the second one is that our founders, our innovators, they have changed their mindset, and they understood that even in the crisis situation, how to survive and how to change the business model so that they will cater to uh, the consumers, and the change in the behavior of the consumers also will address well by modifying their business model and the delivery services. So our founders, our innovators, now they are quite aligned, and also they understood the different intricacies, and they have adapted into this new system of crisis and finding the opportunities from the challenges. The next things are happening, especially during the COVID-19 and especially the post COVID-19 crisis, is now our startups and innovations, they're trying to integrate the fourth industrial revolution technologies, or you can say the deep tech technologies, especially artificial intelligence, data science, next machine learning, then blockchain technology. So there you trying to utilize these technologies and trying to do further innovation, and we call it deep tech innovation, which ultimately providing them the competitive advantage and make them stay ahead in the competition. Another good sign is happening since last 2 to 3 years is that our country is producing, consistently producing unicorns every year. And last year, country has produced 38 unicorns, and our target is to produce at least 50 unicorns every year, and to increase this number to 100 in next 10 to 15 years. So in terms of number of unicorns we produce, it is our country is now third position in terms of the unicorns we produce, and they are now the global enterprises. Further, to help these startups and innovations in educational institutions, also in industries, they are establishing the startup hubs, and all these educational institutions, not only they're setting up the innovation centers, startup centers, and innovation centers, they're also interconnected and collaborating with the other incubation units and research and development centers to create a collaborative environment where the resources, the knowledges, the expertise will get uh, uh, channelized, and resources are being shared among all these startup hubs. Also, you will find the role of big corporates, multinational companies, industry giants. So they are also jumping into this, helping Indian startups and innovators, and they are providing in terms of mentoring supports. They are organizing acceleration programs. They are providing seed investments at the early stage, and also they are developing spin-off companies to do the business from ancillary services like Google, Microsoft, and IBM. And also you will find there are these companies. These companies are now producing small companies, similar Indian MNCs like Tata and Mahindra, and similarly you will find Infosys. The founders of all these big corporates, they're investing lots of money on Indian startups and providing corporate linkages and business services to these startups, so that these startups will get scale up in a very less time period, backed by all these corporate or industrialists. The best example is the recently, I think you all are watching this Shark Tank, right? India Shark Tank program, where the big the startup founders, those are already this unicorn, they are coming, and in front of them, our innovators, our startup founders or early stage startup founders, they're coming, they're pitching, and they're getting seed fund, or they're getting seed investment, uh, along with the intellectual and uh, mm, mentoring services from the SARC. So this is the kind of a new trend you must be witnessing in the last 1 to 2 years of time. So this is a new phase and a new normal, and you will say that this is the kind of a recent trends are happening in Indian startup ecosystem. Coming further, I think we all will not deny the role of entrepreneur and entrepreneurs in economic development, as already have explained in and also uh, expressed many times, that startups and small and medium enterprises are key to growth of a country's economic development, and they provide lots of employment opportunities uh, uh, at various levels. So what are the benefits and why one should pursue entrepreneurship and innovation? So there are multiple ways to address this. The first one is called, when we encourage, we promote startups to happen in a country or in particular cities, actually we're encouraging capital formation, because when startup form, they create lots of wealth, they create lots of assets, they create lots of machineries, and these machineries, assets and equipments, that helps in capital formation. And because these startups are spread across the country, the startups can happen in rural areas, startups can happen in urban and also metro areas. That means the capital is not only restricted to only the metro areas, capital formation can happen in anywhere, any part of our country. So this is the first point. The second one is called, it creates a large scale employment opportunities, because startups engage uh, though very less number of employees, but when you will count total number of employees employed in total number of startups, then the number is huge, and they engage the employees at the very regional and the local level. That's why it promotes a balanced regional development. Further, startups reduces the concentration of the economic power. Just take an example, consider Geo or Airtel, right? They are the big corporates, and they provide telecom services. So when this kind of services are only with big giants or the big industry corporates, then the economic power resides with these industries only, and it is very difficult to break that monopoly, because when economic or the power stay with certain few members or the few industries, then they try to create a monopoly in the market. It is very difficult, and product never comes with competitive price, and as a consumer we have to pay lots of price for that services. But what startups do, because they use the innovation approach, and they come up with new innovative and inventive and intellectual property technologies, that helps to create a service or a product which is equally important, and also both in quality aspect it is worth to use, but with less price they provide. That actually breaks the monopoly exist in the market. That's why startups, promotion of startups or emerging of the startup and small and medium enterprises, that breaks the monopoly, and it reduces the concentration of the economic power. Overall, it helps in wealth creation and distribution, because startups, they always take care the benefit of all the stakeholders rather than the only the benefit of the shareholders. In big companies, only they think about the investors benefit, only they think about the shareholders benefit, they only objective is profit maximization. Whereas startups, they focus on the stakeholders benefit. And who are the stakeholders? The stakeholders are the consumers, the stakeholders are the customers, the stakeholders of the raw material suppliers, the stakeholders are the employees, the stakeholders are the investors, the stakeholders are the distributors, and also the stakeholders are the production or the uh, production houses. So they think about the benefit of all these stakeholders. That's why the profit generated by the startup, it get properly and well distributed to among all the stakeholders. This is the biggest advantage, the plus point with the startup. But these things you will not find with big companies. That's why startups are more preferred compared to the big companies. The most important thing is that because startups caters the services to the global market, and they have the product which can sold to the cross the border of the country, that generate lots of foreign money, that fetch lots of dollar value in, that profit in dollar, which ultimately contributes to the gross national product. And gross national GNP, gross national product, is differ from the GDP. The GDP, gross domestic product, is only the income what you generate within the boundary of the country, whereas the GNP, it is the income that you fetch from outside the country. So startups has the potential to cater to this global market and to get the foreign money, and it contributes to the gross national product. Similarly, uh, because of all these benefits, the standard of living of the people, especially the founders, the employees, the stakeholders, because they're getting more money or they're getting more value out of this whole thing, their standard of living, their purchase of parity get increased. And overall development you will see when the startup community uh, uh, increase in any particular region. There is some misconception also. I think there are some key things or key concepts we should know. So you can ask, so is it good to do a small and medium enterprise, or we should go for startup? So I think the both things are different. So we have to understand the thin line difference between the small and medium enterprise and startup. Small and medium enterprises are the manufacturing units. So they never adopt much innovation. What they do, they just pick a business which already exists somewhere in the part in the world, or in the somewhere in the country or in your state, and they know that if they will establish, if they will set up this machinery or this manufacturing unit, definitely they will able to sell it because there is a demand of that product, and they will generate the revenue of it. But actually it never give them competitive advantage because innovation component is less. SMEs is good if there is a the demand, like food, agriculture, cloth, this kind of product will always remain, the demand will be always remain high. So if you will set up this kind of SMEs, definitely you will get the business throughout the year and your business will survive. But there are certain business where if you will establish, or simply by through producing or through a production unit, you are trying to survive for a long, it is not feasible, because it is easy to copy and establish another unit by your competitor. And if they are good at economy, if they are good at finance, then definitely you will lose the market share, and you have to get out of the market. So always it is preferable, also advisable, if you want to do business, then you should identify the need of the customer, and you have to develop a product and service which is innovative, and also there should be some competitive advantage with your business, so that your competitors will not easily copy it, and they will not, that it will not allow them to establish a business just besides your business, and they will that will help you to that will remove you from the market. So this is the what our entrepreneurs, our startup founders should focus on it. So based on this, you can classify as a productive entrepreneurship and unproductive entrepreneurship. So productive entrepreneurship are those where they use innovation is the key strategy, and they generate lots of intellectual property based, IP based solutions, which gives them kind of a competitive advantage. Also it protect them and their business get easily copied by the competitors. Whereas the unproductive entrepreneurship are the entrepreneurship which not use any innovation, and they always do a kind of a lobby with government or the market to get the business. So they use lots of illegal way, unethical way, and they always try to influence to get the business. They involve in lots of corruptions to get the business. Especially you will find this kind of contractors, that those are getting the government tenders. So they do lots of in certain things. They are the bidding through the bidding process. It is where the bidding process is transparent and robust. You will not find this kind of things. This is called productive entrepreneurship. Contractor or that organization which get the contract through a competitive way, they come and they present and they uh, submit their innovative way how they are going to solve that services, and they get it. But in many cases you will find to get the government contract, firms do lots of kind of a lobby, and they give lots of, they involve in corruptions. So that is actually, these things always they harm to the country, harm to the economic of the country, and this kind of system should be discouraged. And similarly in startup also, if your startup is built on the innovation platform, then the mileages, the benefits in the long term is always high. And if your innovation, if your business is not built on the innovation, then you will run only for the short term basis. You have to it after certain years, you have to close it, you have to switch over to another business which will give you the revenue. So, and there the switchover cost is too high, and that's why you have to consider all these mathematics, and you have to calculate the risk of switchover, and based on that you have to start your business, or while starting your business you have to consider all these things. So that means all type of entrepreneurship, all type of enterprises are not good for the economic development. Small and micro enterprises are required for our country, but there should be enough focus on the innovation. And if any enterprise is focusing on low quality product or doing business in informal way or involving illegal way of doing the things, it should be stopped. Then innovation focused startups has to be encouraged, and government should come up with policies and infrastructures, support systems to encourage this kind of startups to grow. Okay, now let's understand how it is going to happen, because government can't help each and every enterprises to happen. What government role is to create the climate, right? Create the system, so that system will drive, system will take care of all the things. And ultimately government's role is to address the market failure, right? Government role is not to break the market. Government role is to, I see that why market is not functioning, why startups are not flourishing in a particular economy. Then government have to intervene with various policies and tools and programs. Because startup is also kind of a private, right? It's also kind of private entity. And if we will analyze what kind of situations are actually ideal for a private sectors to grow, then if we will take the entrepreneurship as one of the major approach, then I think there are certain things we have to consider, and we have to say that the foundation should be strong, and then based on the foundation there should be enough pillars which will carry this entrepreneurship agenda or entrepreneurship movement in the country. So what are these foundations for a country to make these private sectors to grow? The foundations are the rule of the law. So government should have a firm law and the regulations which will send a confidence and stability in the mind of the entrepreneurs or the private party. So firstly, the law should be stable, and it should be steady, or kind of, you can say that it is very concrete. Next is the infrastructure, be it a physical infrastructure or a social infrastructure. So when I say the physical infrastructure, you will find the incubation units, you will find the machineries, you will find the production and supply, logistic, road infrastructure, then port, then air facility, all these things called the physical, right? And the social infrastructure is the culture where these things will go. especially the states like Gujarat, and also in other states like you will find the Karnataka, Bangalore, and Delhi. So that there is a social structure where it it promotes entrepreneurship, where certain country, certain part of our country, where the culture and the society is not favor of starting the business. So how to shift this mindset of our society from conservative to more open, and make it more favorable towards the entrepreneurship and innovation. So these things also government can plan, and through various policy programs or various awareness programs, and through other incentive system, we can create this one. The third is called domestic and the global macro environment, which is the very basic and the foundation, because if somebody will produce, who is going to consume it, for whom we are going to produce? So this is the basic question. If the domestic market and the size of domestic market and the kind of global market available to us, is that will decide the type of companies, the type of startup, type of innovations will emerge from that particular country. So when these three things, rule of law, physical and social infrastructure, and domestic and global macro environment are the foundations, and based in and on this foundation, the pillars of entrepreneurship we have to erect, and these pillars are called the environment. So once you have the rule of law, then it has to be enforced, it has to be practiced, and government has to make sure that the law they have designed, it has to be practiced, it has to be enforced. So this is the first one. The second is called the business, the startups, the entrepreneurs, the innovators should have a well access to finance, and also the knowledge and the resources, and there should be enough provision for them to undergo various skill programs, training, and upgrade and reskill their entrepreneurial abilities, and other innovation management tools like design thinking approach, how to apply the design thinking, how to what are the competencies required for technology transfer, innovation commercialization, then designing of startups, developing the business model of an innovation, how to prototype, how to develop, and how to market test of the prototype, and develop a demonstrable form of uh, innovation. So all these skills you have to acquire, and either in government or the industries or the education institutions, they have to uh, uh, offer certain skill development programs on this innovation, entrepreneurship, and intellectual property areas, so that our students, faculty members, and also the other entrepreneurs, they will undergo and they will acquire all these skill sets. So this is all called foundation pillar, and once the foundational pillar is intact, then it is easy to uh, create this momentum of innovation and startup culture in our country, and also it will grow in a very speeder way, in a high speed, uh, with less involvement of the government. And this is what we call the governance system, where the system will take care of the whole thing, and once it will reach to a certain level, then the market will take care of it without intervention of the government. Let's understand actually how these things are happening in our country, and actually where government should intervene, and where government should stay away from the intervention. So just assume that um, I think consider in our country we have more than 140 crores of people, right? So we elect a government, we cast vote, and we elect a government, and government do these things on behalf of us. That means the citizen of a country and the government, so there is a relation between the government and the citizen of the country, right, the public. So what kind of relationship it is? It is a principal agent relationship. That means we are the principal, we are the main, we are the the government is for us, right? Government has to act as an agent. Government is not a wholesale, it is just an agent. That we elect the government, government has to act as an agent, and it will act on behalf of the citizen, and citizens are the principal. So this principal agent relationship actually work very well in a domestic market, in a uh, mm, what we called democratic democratic market, where government intervene to provide better services and goods to their citizens. So now assume a market where set of buyers and set of sellers come up with their goods and services, and they sell to the buyers, and in return of that, buyer provides certain value to that goods. So this is called market. That means a market is a virtual platform where buyers and sellers come together, they interact, buyers sellers sell the goods and services to the buyer, and in return of that, buyers provide certain value, either a monetary or the non-monetary value, right? So this is called market, and whole market operate in a very invisible. There is invisible force which operate this whole market. When this whole thing never not follow a desired structure, and it creates a disturbance in the market, we call the market failed to act on a desirable way, and that situation is called market failure. So far what we understood, the startup and innovation is very essential for a country, and it should be encouraged, it should be emerged, it should be flourished. But it is very difficult that startups and innovations to flourish in a developing country, and this is the result, or this is a situation of market failure. Actually we want startups and innovations should happen, but our market system not allow them to happen. So we want startups to happen and market not allow it to happen. That is called a market failure situation. To address this market failure, government intervene. So government intervene in terms of either a regulatory policy or a distributive policy or a redistributive policy. So this is the kind of a policy jargons. I'm not getting into. I'm not going to explain all these policy jargons. But in a layman language, you should understand that if market will not perform, it will not produce, it will not protect, it will not take care the things we are expecting, then we call it is a market failure situation. And to address this market failure, government intervene in terms of policies, and startup is one example where we expect that startup, our environment, our society should support and favor the startups to grow and happen and to flourish, but it is not happening because of the so many reasons. That's why government intervene. And what are these programs actually you are doing? One is helping the universities and helping the higher education institutions to set up innovation centers, to set up incubation units, to set up pre-incubation support systems, so that institute will act as an enabling agent. Institute will act as provide the conducive climate where students, or the students having innovation mindset or entrepreneurial interest, they will come, they will acquire the skill set, they will get access to the finance, they will get the mentoring services at the university level, and that will help in producing innovations and startups from academic institutions. So this is the situation where universities and institutions will able to develop the ecosystem at the campus level, and also help the student and faculty members to practice and start their business during the academic period itself. This is called government government addressed market failure. But sometimes, or in many cases, even though this government make lots of interventions, it it doesn't work. In that case, we call it is government failure. So you might be aware with this word called government failed. So this is called the government failure. So government has tried and attempted, but it failed to correct that market. That's called the government failure. Let's understand the venture, the life cycle of a venture. And we all know that like the venture's life cycle starts with the idea identification or the problem identification. Then the idea convert into a prototype. Then the prototype get market tested, and a business model we have to develop, and that business model and the product has to be undergo a series of validation, testing, and refinement with customers feedback, and finally it get launched, get rolled out into the market. And when customers will start purchasing, and there is kind of business traction will arise from the whole thing, and company will start producing revenue out of it, we call it establishment of a successful venture. And this is called whole value chain of a venture journey. So the first half, starting from idea to business model development, is not much difficult. Actually it is very easy to comparatively easy from idea to prototype development, then further the business model development. Actually hardship starts from business model or developing a prototype into a demonstrable and roll out into the market. This is the actual difficult stage, and this stage we call it, it is the down the or it's called trough stage. So we call it is valley of death. So this valley of death is very difficult period where entrepreneurs or the founders struggle a lot in terms of technology development, technology refinement, and doing the market testing and getting into the market. The most important part is that customer has to accept the innovation. So the startups failed in this section, uh, and the chances of fail is high if government will not intervene. That's why the concept of incubation concept, the incubation, the or incubation units, or the innovation centers, or the pre-incubation units, actually they are playing the role of uh, uh, helping startups to survive through this valley of death period. Once company will recover or will get out of this valley of death, then it is very easy to scale up and grow in a very faster rate. This is called life cycle of a venture, and the stages. And majority of you, maybe you are in the your student, you are still in your study stage, so you are more into the first half. That is, it is a bit difficult, but not much difficult as compared to the valley of death stage. uh, I think the startup mortality in Indian context still it is very high. More than 49% of the startup, they die or they vanish from the market because of the scalability related issue. The business model they have designed, it never provide them to scale. That is the one of the major reason. So while you are designing a business model, you should consider the scalability issues, and 49% of the startups die at this stage. The second is called funding and cash related issues. 43% of the startups they die at the funding and cash related issues. They are not able to manage to get the fund. 21% of startups die because of the business model related issues. They don't know how to design, what kind of components, and how to develop a business model. So if you will just sum it up, more than 60 to 70% of the startups die in the first 2 years of time period of the inception because of the scalability, funding, cash related, and business model related issues. And the incubation units in education institutions are playing key role in bridging this gap and helping the startup to achieve the scale, access to the fund, and designing a very good business model for implementation. Uh, if you will talk particularly about the funding, 45 to 50% of startups they die before they reach to the seed stage. Then you can imagine that what kind of difficulties are actually our startup ecosystem or innovation startup ecosystem are now facing, and government and private parties and educational institutions are playing the role, or they are intervening, they are helping the startups through provisioning the either through company corporate social responsibility fund, CSR fund. Government has provisioned lots of investment and also capital for the early stage startup. There are many educational institutions, they are providing grant support. Ministry of Education also provide grant support. Other ministries and state government, they provide grant support at this stage, at this early stage, so that they will that these startups should not die at this early stage of their at the inception stage, and they will reach to a level where they will able to generate the angel fund. This is the what called role of government. And starting from idea, if you will take the scale, if you will create a scale from the idea level to growth stage of a startup, the initial stage, the role of government is high. So once that startup will move forward in terms of business model, in terms of further company formation, then developing its ability to survive through this valley of death, then the role of government in terms of funding, in terms of knowledge, in terms of kind of things gradually diminishes, gradually decreases, and the role of private parties, role of investors, role of angel investors, their role gradually started along parallelly with the government services. And this is the what the ecosystem where government try to address the market failure and helping startup, helping women entrepreneurs, helping founders, helping student innovators to to help to hands on this innovation and practice innovation, and also develop innovations during their college times, during the academic period, and in their post academic period. uh, Incubation units are also well connected with angel investors, business mentor houses, and acceleration units, so that the private parties pitch in into the incubation unit, and they provide the support systems to the startups and entrepreneurs, innovators. And gradually the role, the involvement of the or the intensity level of public services or the government services uh, reduced, and startups start raising fund or investment from angel and venture capital firms, rather than relying on the government fund or the government grant to survive. You will see, I think you all are familiar with incubation unit and the pre-incubation unit, so I'm not going to explain much. But academic institutions, they provide the research and innovation support at the early stage, at the idea generation, and also they help the startups or the team to farm, and they provide guidance and mentoring supports in terms of designing the services like products and the goods, uh, and innovations, filing intellectual properties, transferring of the technologies, transferring the innovations, and formation of startups. Also, it simultaneously it helps the team to uh, 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 form a company and uh, establish the organization. So these are the kind of a startup ecosystem. Every Most of these educational institutions they're trying to build up, and also you will find many private parties, they're also trying to provide this kind of services uh, beyond the boundary of the educational institutions. So for your convenience, for your understanding, I will explain you when you are deciding, or when you decide to start a business. So actually two things goes parallelly. The first one is called idea, definitely, because business idea has to be grow to business. Simultaneously also you have to focus on the team, which has to be grow to a form a company. If you are only one person, if you started with only yourself, I think it is not a wise decision to carry forward only as alone. So you have to try to build a team and that team has to be the competitive, a very competitive and with complementary skills and supplementary skills has to be established, and proper validation, team commitment has to be ensured. And finally, those will survive through this period of the valley of death. They will be only allowed to be part of the company, and they should be treated as a founder of the company. And the other side, along with the idea has to be validated, and idea has to be converted into a product, and business model has to be built based on the product of the innovation, and innovation has to be validated. Also, business model also has to be validated before you start the business. So these are the two things you have to do. Two things, the two processes has to go on hand by hand. So all total, at the end, I will say that because Atmanirbhar Bharat is the self-reliant India, it's a mission of our country to achieve it, because we can't depend on the outsiders or the other countries to have to meet the requirement of our domestic market. And at this moment, actually, at this stage, actually, we are relying more on the other countries, and you can see that majority of these the daily consumable products we are getting from or we are getting from the outside the country, or the foreign countries. They establish a manufacturing unit, and we are they produce, and we consume. So why not to produce uh, domestically, and also by the Indian entrepreneurs, by the Indian founders? So that is the what Honorable Prime Minister of India, he has uh, he has given a clarion call of Atmanirbhar Bharat, or we can say self-reliant India. And uh, this startup and innovation ecosystem, actually it is quite complementary to each other, because India only can achieve this Atmanirbhar or the self-reliant if we will make Indian startup ecosystem vibrant, dynamism, and also competitive. And it is happening since last 5 to 6 years. You can see that there is increased seed stage investment, and our even at the idea level also you will find certain level of funding from various sources. And nowadays the Indian industry measures, especially uh, corporates, Indian corporates, they are investing on our startup and on our innovations. So which was not which is not the situation, which is not the scenario earlier. In earlier, you will find that the most of these uh, uh, Chinese and Japanese backed in angel, the venture capitalists, they were generally invest in our startup. But this scenario is now changing, so it's a good sign. And our students, our faculty members, our young entrepreneurs, they are now realizing that uh, uh, they have the ability and the potential to innovate. So the talent base we have in our country is the biggest advantage for our country to expand, to explore, and leverage it. And corporates involvement in terms of accelerating this process in giving access to the facilities, and through mentoring and advisory services, and through investment, is actually now going to be the game changer in the whole thing. And because of this digital economy, everybody is trying to utilize these digital platforms, and using the artificial intelligence and the machine learning platforms. So nowadays startups are actually getting the business fractions, and they're getting revenue in a very short period of time. So that actually enhance their confidence, and give them um, uh, give them kind of a hope that they will survive, and they will also produce better. They will able to produce better innovations, which will help them to grow further. And overall, all these things are complemented by uh, establishing high-end capital-intensive infrastructures, and government, non-government agencies, and ministries, state governments, they are providing services and supports to the other agencies in establishing uh, infrastructures. And uh, support systems that ultimately helping accelerating the whole process. So this is all about the Atmanirbhar Bharat, and through policies also government is trying to uh, achieve this objective. And I think almost all state governments have their own state startup mission, and central government has the its state startup action plan, which was launched in 2016, and thereafter in 2016, towards the end of the 2016, Ministry of Education also started startup policy for educational institutions. And now NEP, National Education Policy, is providing the momentum to all these initiatives. Government, central government also has reformed its tax structure, exit option, ease of doing business policies, and provisioned enough incentives for the startups and for the women entrepreneurs. And you can see that now it is very easy to access to angel angel fund and venture capital fund, which was not the situation earlier. Okay, I'm not going to talk about this the policy approach. So this is the snapshot of the how the policy of logic built, and how government is trying to focus. So I'm not going to cover this. Is going to take another 1.5 hour session. So what we are expecting, that every higher education institutions where scientists, faculty members, and the students, the base is there. They are, that is the ground where all these things will happen. And every educational institutions should connect with the corporate and society, and to get the problems from the market and society. And our student and faculty, they should work on these problems or the challenges to build the innovation by with the support from the educational institutions. And every educational institutions should build its capability and capacity to harness this innovation development and entrepreneurship, provide uh, entrepreneurship exposure and skill development opportunities, and help them to establish startups and mentoring service supports, and uh, providing guidance and handholding supports to uh, transfer the innovation and technologies to the industries. And if these things will be happened with backed by coherent policy and guidance and the resource support from government, then definitely every institute able to generate a very concrete and very focused mass of in, student innovators and the student startup, and that will leads to produce more innovative student enterprises at the micro level, and that will connect with other institutions. And at the national level, it will create a national startup ecosystem where our educational institutions and students will take the lead role in driving uh, the national startup ecosystem. So Minister of Education has lots of initiatives since its inception in 2019. So we have an Institutions Innovation Council. We have a Smart India Hackathon program. Also, we have other uh, versions of hackathons like Toy Hackathon, Drug Discovery Hackathon, ASEAN Indian Hackathon, and other international hackathons we are conducting on regular interval in every year. And we have program like Hotel Ranking of Institutions on Innovation Achievement. We have other programs like Kapila program, through which Ministry of Education provide grant support to the student or the institutions to file a intellectual property or to file a patent, and uh, generation of the patent. All these policy programs, what I have explained, all these policy programs actually act uh, uh, in an integrated fashion to create the multiplier effect. And you can imagine that, okay, in a particular educational institutions, the policy formation or the every institute develop a long-term innovation entrepreneurship policy by using the National Innovation and Startup Policy Guidelines prescribed by Ministry of Education, and which set certain target and indicators, and also it prescribes the action plans for implementation, the institutions innovation councils established in educational institutions, which make sure that the action plans prescribed by the policy formulation has to be implemented on a time bound fashion, and the result of implementation will create the impact at the regional level or the institute level, and these impacts or these outputs can be demonstrated as part of the total ranking of institutions on innovation achievement, and institute will get a reward or kind of a will get recognition for that achievement, uh, to become a or for being a vibrant innovation and startup culture in that institute. So far, more than 3,000 institutions are part of this Institutional Innovation Council, and more than 1,400 institutions are participating in this ATAL ranking. And almost all institutions have already adopted the National Innovation and Startup Policy. They have majority of them, they have already formulated the policy and started implementing these policies. So through this, government or Ministry of Education is trying to empower and enabling our education institutions to provide a conducive climate and environment through through various policy initiatives, so that our students and faculty members will get enough opportunities to understand, to enhance the awareness level towards the innovation, to develop a positive sentiment and passion towards the innovation and entrepreneurship as an alternative career option, and also helping them certain grant supports and financial assistance through various programs, because we conduct innovation competitions, we provide smart India hackathon program competitions on regular basis, through which we train, we mentor the students. Those are part of these competitions, and those will reach to a certain level or a certain level of innovation. Ministry of Education provide grant support in addition to the incubation linkage supports to convert that innovations to a business model and further into a startup. So this is all about the NISP. I'm not going to talk much about, because NISP is a guideline. It says that student can start a business during their academic itself. It is now legitimate activity, and there is enough provision for students and faculty members to engage in startup activities, engage in innovation activities, and for this engagement they will get reward system, like they will get certain discount in the attendance surveys, and faculty members will get something called weightages in the performance metrics. Further, this NISP delineates the equity structure or kind of revenue sharing model, revenue sharing mechanisms in incubation unit, then also in IP, intellectual property ownership sharing mechanism. So all these gray areas which was not touched earlier, so we have tried to address all these lines through this policy guidelines. So if you will get time, then please search in the Google, and you will get the things, and you will able to understand the guidelines, and it will help you to utilize your leisure time or utilizing your academic time to start designing the ideas and also building startup. For this, you can approach your institutions and you can say that these are the policy guidelines are already in action by Ministry of Education, and if your institute has not yet started, then definitely they should start the process of adoption of this NISP. Similarly, we have IICs, so Institutions Innovation Council. It is a model, it is a framework through which educational institutions they streamline and strengthening the innovation and entrepreneurship activities in the campuses, and it makes sure that every year education institutions should conduct the such kind of innovation and entrepreneurship activities throughout the year, so that our students will get enough exposure and multiple times exposure to innovation and entrepreneurship, so that they will digest the jargons, they will understand the importance, and also they will start engaging in innovation and entrepreneurship activities. So this is also a very unique model where more than 50,000 students and for 24,000 faculty members, sorry, 10,000 experts, and 30,000 uh, uh, faculty members are part of this institution innovation council network, and all are interacting, they are sharing, they are helping each other in uh, imbibing this innovation and entrepreneurship culture in educational institutions. So we also provide funding supports to startups, and sorry, to the student startups, to the student innovators at the idea stage, at the proof of concept stage, at the business model stage, also at the prototype stage. And so far we have trained more than uh, 3,000 student startups, and supported more than 127 startups, student startups, to convert into a, convert into a venture. And also provide mentoring services, training, mentor linkages, incubation linkages throughout this whole process. Auto ranking is another program, so where we ask every institute to provide data related to innovation and entrepreneurship achievement in their campuses, and based on that we rank these institutions. And that ranking system is used by various ministries while inviting, or while disbursing the grants to institutions towards innovation and entrepreneurship promotion activities or the related services. So this is all about Ministry of Education and the various programs, and how education institutions, our students, are benefiting out of these things. Also, I have highlighted the importance of innovation, and where our country is leading now, and how institutions, how students and youth will contribute towards the economic development. Also, they will increase, they will generate wealth, not only for the country, also for themselves. So this is all about my session. So now session is open for question and answer.
So I request, if you have any queries, please let us know, because I have two questions as for the discussion or as for the presentation by Professor. The very first question, okay, excellent. Thanks, Ramarao. The very first query, which actually during the discussion or the presentation, I was looking out the presentation in the initial. We can see that there are 2,000 or plus institutions or colleges are there into IIC or into the startup, and where is the differences of 48,000? What best actually we are trying to do or address those other 48,000 to come in for these startup or IICs?
So you are talking about the IIC, the pyramid structure we're talking about?
The initial pyramid where you were talking about that we have somewhere around 48,000 of institutions which are still not the part of this startup.
Okay. See, the scenario is like this. We have more than 50,000 startups, right? 50,000 education institutions. And when we started this IIC program in 2019, so actually it is hard to believe that only 400 institutions had some kind of innovation and entrepreneurship activities, even not in full fledged. Definitely in IIT or NITs you will find, but it is other institutions it was nothing. So we started with bare minimum of the 400 institutions. Then we started building the whole system, and we have created a very robust platform, and we have started providing training. Then gradually in the last 3 years, this 400 number increased to the 3,000 number, right? If you will see from the this side, from 400 to 3,000, I think it seems a very good number, right? If you will see that, but if somebody will see from the other side, then total availability, and from the total availability, what is the catchment? So total catchment area is 50,000, and out of this, only 2,000 to 3,000 only we would materialize. So this gap of the 48,000 is actually it's a really point of concern for us, because these institutions are only running the programs, and they're only providing certificate upon completion of the program. The institute itself not able to understand what is innovation, what is entrepreneurship. Where institute itself is not aware about it, then how they will to inculcate, how they will pass the vision to the students. This is the situation, and this is very uh, critical situation, and we have to overcome it. And how we are going to overcome? There is a strategy. The strategy is that when we will reach this to 3,000 to 10,000, then this will create a kind of a this will set a auto mode system, which will influence the other institutions to start this kind of activities. Now they are not realizing the importance and the value of this innovation entrepreneurship. To make it realize, we have to reach the threshold number. That threshold number is called 10,000. So if 20% of your institute will start doing it, then by seeing this 20% of institute, remain 80% of institute will start trying to imitate that. So that is the what the strategy. It will take time of another 4 to 5 years, but definitely it is going to happen. I can bet it, because 20 years back, 20 years back, there was no system of placement office in any educational institutions. Only the placement office, the placement cell was restricted to certain institutions. But institutions realized that by creating a placement office, it is going to attract more students to join, because it gives them more kind of a security, kind of a secure mindset. Similarly, now because of setting up innovation center or the pre-incubation center, institutions are now sending a very positive signal, positive message to the students, that if you will come to our college, not only the study, also you will be excel in the innovation entrepreneurship. Also, you will get access to the so many facilities to start your business. So the culture and the facility and the mindset is now shifting. Now they are shifting. So our students are now more inclination toward the innovation, because they want to create their identity at the early stage. And innovation and entrepreneurship is the only thing where they will be able to create that identity in the in their academic itself. They need not to wait for a long years to develop their identity, because in job you have to wait at least 20 to 30 years to reach to a director, or to reach to a C kind of a very high level. And in startup you can do it in a very just 1 to 2 years. And that is what our youth have already realized it. And to just we now utilize this youth mindset and institutions ability, and when you will club it together, that will create a best beautiful scenario of vibrant ecosystem.
Dipanji, there was a presentation regarding the India. I was seeing those blue dots. Top of the India, of course, Punjab, Haryana, up to Delhi, we can see the blue dots. And down the line from Pune, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Bangalore, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, all, we can see the blue dots. But what about this middle line? That is the Gangetic Plain. We are not seeing any of the blue dots.
Yeah, see that it's not the blue dot, it's the color coding, right? It's the intensity of the color, right? So that indicates that intensity of startups, or the activity, or the kind of a policy implementation level of in various states. So when Startup India plan came in 2016, after that Ministry of Commerce has started analyzing and ranking the states based on their startup ecosystem in that particular state. So they have considered that the activeness of that particular state, that kind of policies, startup mission, what kind of policy provisions, what kind of facilities, what kind of financial or the training activities are happening in that particular state. So it was found that states like Punjab, Gujarat, then some extent your Telangana, then these states were quite ahead compared to the eastern countries, or the eastern parts of the state, or the eastern states, and especially the central state like MP, eastern belt like Odisha, West Bengal, and northeast belt. These states were not proactive in that, because the society itself is not favorable towards the innovation and entrepreneurship. They said that you should first study, first you focus, you complete your study, focus on study, get good OGP or CGP, then you join a job. Once you will develop your financial stability, then only you focus on your business. So that kind of mindset was quite prominent, predominant in this all these regions. But you will see the culture in the Gujarat or the Punjab or all these states. Actually, they are quite sometimes when the state is small also, and like Delhi and Bangalore, or you will go to the other Hyderabad or Telangana. So these states, they are the small in size, and it is very easy to implement a policy, or it is the you will find lots of noise in science and technology or innovation things. That's why you will find these states or have kind of a deep color compared to the other eastern belt, the states from the eastern belt. So, but now I think in last 5 years, things are changing very rapidly, and almost all states have their own policies. But it depends actually up to what extent they are enforcing these policies and making it effective utilization by the startup community. So this is the point of matter to us.
What can be the one two best strategies to actually ask all these states to come in and work for that startups?
The building block for developing any for any state is that first they have to focus more at the education. If your education is not properly aligned, and entrepreneurship and innovation are not part of the curriculum, then I think whatever you will do, you are going to only address sporadically. You are not going to address in a holistic way. Education is the first. So you have to make sure that at the school level, at the higher education level, there should be enough component of innovation, entrepreneurship, and also intellectual property, not only at the extracurricular activity, also in curricular activity, also as a co-curricular activity. So government has to make sure that at the education. The second one is that we have to enable these education institutions to have a proper infrastructure and proper recognition incentive, because when the system will not recognize you, when the system will not give you proper incentive for your achievement or for your things, then I think also it is a discouraging factor for many. And these 2-3 things we have to first line up. Once it is there, then we have to build up our infrastructure. Then we have to bring lots of access to the finance, grants, schemes for them. That way we can do it. Yep.
Okay. Any more questions from anyone? Those who are here, they can unmute themselves and ask, or they can write it on the chat box so that I can actually ask for it. Yeah, please. Ramaroti, would you like to speak?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good evening, Sai, sir. Wonderful presentation, very exhaustive and very depth. Sir, in fact, I too didn't know that there were so many facilities available. I am very actively involved in propagating the innovation and corresponding entrepreneurship, because I want to correlate both the activities. And the stigma, enterprising, of course, do you remember, younger days, enterprising was not a good word. Now, yeah, it is a very encouraging word. Sir, now I want your suggestion very strongly. I am actively involved in this issues regarding propagating the policy matters which are hidden, because this is reading between lines the whole policy and bringing it to a comprehension level. So, do you have any state level representation?
See, on frankly speaking, actually, the DPIIT, the Minister of Commerce, has they are implementing the Startup India and Stand Up India action plan, right? And that policy is for anybody who is going to start a startup. But actually, what Minister of Education has realized that see, promoting a policy is fine, but so far it is not focused at the education level. That because a student especially spend 4 years of time in a particular college, and if he will not learn there, if he will not do and fail there, then what he will do once he will graduate, then definitely he will join the other, like a job kind of thing. So we realize that education and entrepreneurship innovation practice in the academic itself is very, very important, because more than 80% of these founders, all these founders have education of either engineering or MBA or postgraduate. That means our higher education institutions are playing the key role, and that's why Minister of Education has started focusing the policy guidelines and programs, everything only focusing to the education institutions. So our aim is that if we will make these education institutions vibrant, it will make them enable to inculcate the culture. I think after that they will have all the capabilities to leverage and to approach and to find the way how to develop a startup or how to realize their entrepreneur journey. So we are focusing that education level, especially the pre-incubation level.
Sir, I do round robin counseling sessions to most of the colleges, and I'm in touch with many college lecturers and all the teachers and all that. There are two aspects in this, sir. The technical institutions will really understand the part of innovation and entrepreneurship. When it comes to non-technical part of education like BA, BCom, and even to that matter BSc, I am from BSc. But of course, I had very good lecturers.
Totally agree with your point.
So
totally agree with your point.
Is very difficult. Yes, sir.
Exactly, totally agree with your point. So that's why what we have started, because we understand that non-technical institutions, they don't understand also, they don't know where to start. That's why this IIC is actually going to help them to start, because we provide certain prescribed activity, what the minimum things you have to do as an institution. And now we have a concept called mentor and mentee. So those are the best performing IIC institutions, those especially those technical institutions. Now they're acting as a mentor and they provide guidance, mentoring supports to the IIC institutions, especially those non-technical institutions, how to conduct the activity, how to mobilize the resources, how to identify the startup experts, and how to provide certain kind of a resources to the students. So this mentor and mentee program, this impact lecture program. So we have designed so many small programs, that is a top-up programs to the IIC program. So that is actually helping, and we are getting very good positive response from the non-technical institutions. You will surprised to know that now more than, I think, out of these 3,000, 700 to 800 institutions are non-technical in institutions, and they are also securing 4-star in IIC annual ranking process. So that means they understood how to do it. Just I think they are going to inspire for the other non-technical institutions, and that way we have to develop the whole network, and we have to grow, and we have to reach this 10,000, the threshold number, in next 5 years.
Sir, what about pure government institutions where there are really bureaucratic hurdles for such activities, because there is a hierarchy of management?
Problem will continue. Problem will continue. Problem will continue. Difficulties will come in. And the challenges we have to accept, and we have to conquer. That's the only principle.
Sir, I will use your lecture material to translate the policy matter to a much lower level, because you have given exhaustive information. I, at my personal level, have addressed the final year students of engineering, and I would like to go to other types of non-technical institutions also regarding entrepreneurship and innovation. And one link that I would, I always tell students that, government is there to help you even when in the case of patents and all those things. So am I right, sir? Does funding is funding provided when there is a worthwhile patent that can be made?
Yes, government. Actually, two things happened. That's now Ministry of Commerce has reduced 80% of the IP filing. Earlier, it was not there. So now if any educational institutions will file the patent, then they have to pay 80% reduced fee. So that is the one. Second thing is that if it is a technical institute, even if it is not technical institute also, if they will register, if they will file, and after that, if they want a reimbursement, they have to register in the Kapila program of Ministry of Education. They will get reimbursement. They will get reimbursement of their IP filing fee also. So we have programs for both IP generation and IP filing support.
Sir, this innovation and subsequent patent filing, there are some litigation layers, pretty well, sir, some patents are contested. At that time, there is pure, patent attorney services that are required, or litigation services that need to happen.
That service already taken care. That service is already taken care. So up to 25,000 rupees, they can submit for reimbursement.
Okay. Sir, now the assistance which you are providing and some CSR activity, can they be merged together to make a very consolidated effort? Do you allow that?
No, I can't comment at this moment, because I don't know the background of in which context you are talking about. So we can talk out of this meeting.
Yes, sir. Yeah, because there are some projects which can be taken up.
We will talk after this.
Sir, yes, sir. Yes. Sure, sir. I will take the reference from Mr. Pradeep, and we'll have a roundtable conference with you.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Very exhaustive. Very exciting presentation, in fact.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
over to Arpita ji for presenting the letter of appointment.
Well, once again, I, on my behalf of my team, would like to really appreciate and thank Mr. Sahu for the exhaustive and brilliant presentation. And it shows what kind of enthusiasm the ministry and the government is showing towards an India with the power of the youth. So we need more entrepreneurs, and that's how we all are working towards that lead. So hereby presenting a token of gratitude from our team to you, sir. Can I request my IT team to display the certificate, please?
Thank you,
Thank
Dipan
you.
ji.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dipan ji, for your today's session. Let me conclude what all we have discussed as of now, and what were the high points onto this discussion regarding the startup action plan. The first point which Dipan ji started that with the new education policy, and I can quote here. Now, students, those who are going for 11th standard, they can choose the entrepreneurship as an optional subject. That is the third optional subject which Government of India, because of NEP, is actually enabling. This is the best point. Then Deepanji actually informed that how best is the consideration of GDP to innovation of the states, innovation strategy of the country. The more is innovation in the country, it means country is higher in the GDP rate. Best part is there is high rise of jobs in startups, which was not there actually earlier, I must say. Government is trying or focusing towards the women empowerment, and they are asking the increase from 9% to 11% or so in coming days, or you can say within 2 years or 4 years of time. The best part of discussion, which I actually like, was the foundations and the pillars of the entrepreneurs, because of which any of the policies, once we are talking about the policy on the implementation stage, if we have a foundation and if we have the pillars to understand and actually locate or actually address for those things, that is the best way. And Deepanji also covered all the uh, life cycle of an entrepreneurship, that is the death valley, and of course the funding too. The highest point, I must say, there is a difference between an MSME and the entrepreneurship. This we need to identify, because more and more we relate these two things simultaneously. This needs to be understood. Thank you, Deepanji, for today's session. Thanks for this. And I request Aditi to close this presentation. Over to Arpita ji for the closing word.
Thanks, Pradeep ji. Well, I would like to share some info with our viewers as we are discussing the topic regarding the importance and the action plan, the business plans that we all spoke. So according to the HBR 6-year research confirms that business with a written and a formalized business plan are likely to be 16% more achievable for their financial viabilities as compared to the non-planning players. So, it's important that we formalize the structure, the importance of the plan, which is now the need of the hour. And it's also been said that within formalized business plan, we make a world of different entrepreneurs who are more likely to get external funding. So that's what's the importance of the formalized structure that we all dream for, and we all are working towards it. And now, as you all know, and you agree, that acknowledging the good that you all already have in our life is the foundation for all our abundance. So hereby, let me thank the pillars of our team for their contribution and support for this incubation program. So first of all, I would like to thank the founder and director of Prakramika Vocational Institute, Dr. Gayatri Narasimhan, Dr. Mandakini Shukla from Hasna Foundation, Mr. Somnath Mishra from Saad Digital, myself from Mindcube Multi-Services Private Limited, Impulsive Training Center, Ms. Akshay Narasimhan. Thankful to our organizers, Route to Be and Voice It Out, for conducting this online incubation program, and our social media partner, Atmanirbhar Bharat Vocational Learning Platform, and our creative, wonderful team of impact. And last but not the least, thanking the students and the University of Avinash Lingam for their support. And in the end, as we are talking about the entrepreneurs and about the startup, so hereby ending this session with a lovely note, I would like to share here quoting Mr. Sean Rad, a co-founder of Tinder, when he said, when you are building a startup, it's difficult, particularly a startup that is expanding at the rate of Tinder. You have to give 100% and you have to be committed. Solving the problem has to be personal, or else you are going to disintegrate. So in the end, see you with the next another session. Till then, stay tuned with us for our another exciting session. Till then, take care. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thanks to all. I'm just closing for the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.